Well, good morning, my friends. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I'm doing great, and I'm a little excited because I finally get to get a haircut today. I live out in California, and right now you're not allowed to get a haircut in California. In fact, for the last couple of months you haven't been able to get a haircut. They made it available for 4 days, and then they shut it all down again. So back when I was in high school, in my geometry class, I became friends with a girl named Diana, and we became great friends. And when I graduated, I moved out to Los Angeles to go to music school. And right after I graduated, Diana graduated, and she wanted to take a specialty hair training course and came out and lived with me for a couple of months in Los Angeles. So she lived through that war and can talk about it. We're gonna go in and visit her now. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. You're looking a little shaggy too. You've been cutting your own hair, haven't you?
You're right, I haven't had a real haircut since February.
February, and it's now the end of, when everyone was watching this, it's pretty much the beginning of September, so. I told her to shave his head. Actually, outside we were talking how funny would that be if we dyed his hair back to blonde, and then when we saw my mom tomorrow, she'd think he's having a midlife crisis.
I have some fun shampoos so he could have a little blue or green.
Oh, I like that idea. By the way, everyone watching, my grandpa's already taken out his hearing aid, so he can't hear anything we're talking about right now. This is Diana, by the way. Diana and I was telling them, Diana, that you had the misfortune of living with me in Los Angeles for a while you went to specialty school, but we had a great time, actually, I thought.
Oh my gosh, we had so much fun. So many fond memories, and it was a really neat time in life. One of the neat things that I remember from our time out there, or my time out there with Jordan, is that when they were breaking ground on the Kodak Theater while I was out there.
Right, Hollywood and Highland.
Tearing up that whole section, and now when you go out there, it's completely different. But to see that before and watch the start of where the Kodak Theater is now at was pretty neat.
Yeah, that would have been back in 2000.
Yep, and we lived right by where the Mickey Mouse star was at on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yep.
And I caught the bus right there by the Mickey Mouse star. That was fun.
Down to Santa Monica.
Yes.
Every day.
Very cool.
Look pretty good, like Cary Grant. So we've got our hair cut, and we noticed off to the side of the road that there's a small little cemetery over here, so we want to check it out and see what it's all about. It's right here on the grounds of a school. And then we're going to take you to see something really interesting, something that'll turn back the time for my grandpa. We're in a town called Mason, and once we got here, my grandpa said, I think that there's a replica to Crosley Field. And that was the Cincinnati Reds ballpark that my grandpa used to go see them play at. So I wasn't around for Crosley Field, so I'd like to go see what a replica of Crosley Field looks like. And here's the cemetery right here. It says Coddington Cemetery. And I see inside there a Sarah, wife of Joseph Coddington. So I assume and I see an Ezra over here on this one, and there are a couple of headstones right here. It's kind of interesting thing that we saw off the side of the road, and I said, you know, I should show that because you don't see this kind of stuff in California. Back here beyond the soccer fields is Crosley Field. Well, the new Crosley Field. Hoping we can see a little bit in somehow. Field's not open right now, but I see some gates open and I see some fences, so I think we can get a little bit of a view, if nothing else. Well, here it is. Now what's interesting about Crosley Field, and you see it right here, is that the outfield used to go on an incline, actually.
That is the actual scoreboard of the Crosley Field.
You remember that scoreboard?
Yes.
When was your first game at Crosley Field, Papa?
About 1940. Went with my grandfather down.
Who was pitching? Do you remember that day?
Wasn't Johnny Vandermeer.
That was your favorite.
Probably Bucky Walters.
He was a great pitcher for them, wasn't he?
He was a 20-game winner. They pitched, at that time, they pitched a full 9 innings.
Who was catching? Ernie Lombardi?
Yes.
Let's go take a look at the field, huh?
Okay.
It looks pretty similar.
there. He said, the outfield and everything does.
And this is where they actually had the pitching mounds and everything. They were all along the side back then too. Now they have them in the
Pitching mound is covered. I can see that.
Yeah. Pretty cool to see this. This is not this place, but at Crosley Field, the original. That's where Pete Rose would have made his debut. Wonder if we can go out here and look at the scoreboard. We have to, don't we? If that's the original scoreboard, we have to. It's crazy because when we would always drive out to Reds games when I was a kid, and we would take 75 South to Riverfront Stadium, my grandpa would always point off to the side and tell us that that's where the old Crosley Field was, that he used to come see baseball games. Isn't that crazy that they saved the original scoreboard and now it lives out here? Kind of cool to see my grandpa out here looking up at that scoreboard that he would have looked at in 1940. Okay.
The lineup, shown on there in right field, number 14, Pete Rose.
That's right.
Center field is Geronimo.
Cesar Geronimo.
Third base is
I know who it is.
yeah, tell me. I can't think of his name. Tony Perez. Catching, naturally, Johnny Bench.
Yep.
First base at that time was
44 would have been
no, 23. 23 was the guy Tony Perez, but he's the first base.
Lee May. Wasn't it Lee May?
That was after him. I know his name, I can't think of it now. Left field was 16. Names don't come to. Second base, Joe Morgan.
Oh yeah.
The pitcher, 31.
Don Gullett?
Don Gullett or yeah.
Might have been.
What was Joe Nuxhall's number? 39, I think, wasn't it?
41.
40.
Pretty cool to see that after he just went off and rattled off all the players. Not sure what year that would have been, but from what he was saying, that definitely would have been before the Big Red Machine. And look at the Giants roster. You can see it has in this row, and this row has the position, and then the number, the jersey number, uniform number of the player. Pretty cool. Look, if you look up here against Chicago White Sox, it's when it was still the California Angels. Gene Autry's team. Gene's team. And look at that, playing Philadelphia was the Montreal Expos, who became the Washington Nationals. And this is when Washington still had a team, before they were the Nationals. He's going over to sit in the stands. I knew he would. And there's the warm-up mound for relief pitchers or the starting pitcher.
Vinny Lombardi used to hit balls off of that left field fence for singles.
That's not only the scoreboard, that looks like that's the original fence, isn't it?
Yeah, if you hit one of the scoreboard, you hit a long.
And from here you can actually see the incline in the outfield.
Yeah, the terrace goes all the way around. The right field didn't have over there a
No.
big terrace, but it was, and one of the big players that played here was Frank Robbins.
Oh, that's right.
Beta Pinson and Frank Robbins.
Didn't they say Pete Rose, because there used to be a train track that went behind this stadium, that Pete Rose hit a ball out and it landed on the train, and he said he hit the longest ball ever because it didn't land until it hit Kentucky? These stands are right out of Crosley Field too?
Those seats were taken out of Crosley Field.
Wow. So this field's located in a town called Blue Ash, and it says here that George W. Bush spoke at Blue Ash's Crosley Field Sunday, July 30th, my birthday, 2000. And over here you've got participants for the Old Timers game, Jim Perry and John Blue Moon Odom. It says what year that they pitched. And then all along this back, all kinds of people that have played here. Let's see if we recognize any. Ken Griffey, I know that name. Ted Power, I remember Ted Power.
That's Ken Griffey Jr. or Senior.
Yeah, that's Senior. There's Tracy Jones.
Clay Carroll.
Oh, yeah.
The relief pitcher of the
Big Red Machine. There's Pete.
There's Dirty Pete.
Look, they have them all sign them. That's really cool. I like they did that. Don Blasingame. Jim Mudcat Grant. There's Tommy Helms. Jim Maloney, I recognize all those names. Gus Bell.
That built the Big Red Machine.
Yep, he did. Speaking of Big Red Machine, Davey Concepcion. Jack Billingham, he was also there. Ed Armbrister. George Foster. Jim O'Toole. Boy, there we go. There's the old left-hander, Joe Nuxhall. Right there. Right next to Johnny Bench, Cesar Geronimo, Pat Zachary, and Tony Perez. Tug McGraw put a smiley face. Man, they sure got a lot of them, all the way down. Probably not a whole lot of names on that wall you don't recognize, are there?
There's a lot there. I don't know who they are. Fred Valentine.
Oh, there's my grandpa's favorite player. Back-to-back no-hitter, Johnny Vandermeer. You got to see him pitch, didn't you?
Yes, I seen Johnny Vandermeer pitch several times. And they traded him up to Chicago when I was going to school, electronic school in Chicago. I got to see him pitch for the Cubs.
In Wrigley Park, huh? Wrigley Field. It says the last pitch was thrown out at Crosley Field, 1970, June 24th, marking the end of a nostalgic era in Major League Baseball. Since 1985, the City of Blue Ash and Crosley Field Fundraising Committee have been working on to reawaken that Crosley spirit at this complex. So it was opened in 1988.
I couldn't remember his name.
Oh, that's who's pitching on the scoreboard, my grandpa said, Jim O'Toole. Couldn't remember. The reason I pointed out Don Blasingame is because I'm pretty sure that Pete Rose said that's who he beat out for his job at second base. Even though they have a sign that says to stay off the infield, and we will. I'd like to go see what it looks like to be behind home plate. Just kind of to take in the experience of looking out at that scoreboard and everything. I'm a left-handed batter, so I would have stood right here. It's really cool. I've heard so many stories about Crosley Field my whole life. It's kind of neat to get to visualize it, what it would have looked like right in front of my very own eyes. And you guys too. And I guess in a little homage to Riverfront Stadium, they did a little riverfront over here too. Though the back and everything don't look the same, they did put the AstroTurf on the field, so you kind of get that difference. Because I remember Riverfront had, on their back wall was a taller wall with a big yellow line that went across the top so you could see it, whether it was a fair or whether it was a home run or not. So this is the Riverfront Field. So in this trip today for the vlog, I was also planning on going to Rose Hill Cemetery, and we're gonna go visit a man who made his debut right at Crosley Field in 1944 and was actually the youngest player to ever play a Major League Baseball game at the age of 15 years old. Let's go visit the old left-hander, Joe Nuxhall. Well, we've arrived at Rose Hill Cemetery in Hamilton. Alright, I think Joe's up here at the back part of this chapel. So I'm pretty sure that he's back here under these porticos. I'm hoping. We're looking for the name Nuxhall. There he is. Now, I never saw Joe pitch myself, but the reason I know about it is he was our color commentator with Marty Brenneman, and they used to do these really kind of hokey but very funny Kroger commercials and Cons commercials together. Papaw, what do you remember about Joe Nuxhall?
The thing I noticed right away is that his wife is still alive.
You said she stuck by him from the very beginning.
Yes. They went through all the minor leagues together. They had a rough time for a long time. Till 1952, he finally come back in the majors. He graduated from high school in 46. So from 46 to 52, he was in the minor leagues.
Now he started, right, basically what you and I were talking about is that they had said that they went to draft his dad, or they went to get his dad to play during World War II to fill in for players, and his dad had too many kids and said he couldn't do it, so they asked a 14-year-old Joe to...
15.
Well, they asked him when he was 14, and then he went and joined the team when he was 15, and he said, I found an interview where he said that he got to sit on the bench with, who was it, Bill McKechnie?
Bill McKechnie was the manager there.
Yeah, and he said, I had the best seat in the house because we were playing the Cardinals, and Stan Musial and Enos Slaughter were there, and then he said, until they called me in, then I had the worst seat in the house. One strikeout, 3 or 4 walked batters, a couple of hit batters, giving up a couple of runs, and didn't play again for 8 years.
I listened to that on the radio.
Really?
1944. Joe was the same age as me. In fact, he was a month younger than me. But I noticed his wife is still alive. That's strange.
Now, you were telling me that he, up until he was in his 60s, he used to pitch all the batting practices for the Reds before the games. He used to do all the spring training stuff. They were saying he would be part of the fantasy teams where the normal civilians can come play with older players, and he would argue with the umpires during those games, and if he saw somebody play or do something wrong, he would call him out. They said he was very feisty.
Oh, he had a temper, a real strong temper. He used to lose it on the mound. If things didn't go right, he'd throw fits.
You said if they tried to take him out of the game, he'd throw fits too?
Yes.
But he turned out to be one of the most likable people in the whole organization, didn't he?
Everybody in baseball knew Joe Nuxhall. They all talked about him, all the managers, everyone. They knew, especially once he became an announcer for the Reds. I think that was the late 60s he started announcing for the Reds. And Marty Brenneman then come in 74 and joined him.
Right before the Big Red Machine started winning. What a time to come in. And Joe was always real friendly, real close with all the people on the team, all the players and everything. But you were telling me, you know, what you liked about him was that he didn't put himself into the game. He really called it the way he saw it.
Yes.
Didn't put his feelings towards players or team or how it was being run into the calling of the game.
But once after he died, Marty Brenneman changed.
Yeah.
He went from letting Joe know about baseball till Marty all of a sudden became the most knowledgeable announcer in baseball.
Yeah.
He, 'He's, very opinionated. I had a hard time listening to Marty after that.
Yeah, Joe was definitely, he was the leader of those two. I remember watching as a kid, seeing some of the wrestlers, seeing like Macho Man up in the announcer's booth with these guys, and it's because Joe apparently was a fan of wrestling. He liked big time wrestling, and Randy Savage had once been in the Cincinnati Reds farm system. He was a minor leaguer. I believe he was a shortstop and catcher with the Reds and the Cardinals, so Joe remembered him back in those days and had him in the booth. So I remember that a lot. I remember those guys were always on TV. Used to say, they called him the old left-hander, and whenever he was signing off, he'd always say, "This is the old left-hander, rounding third and coming home. Have a good night."
Heading for home.
Isn't that amazing? 15 years old, started through his first. And you were telling me on the way here, Papa, I didn't know this. You said that because he had pitched at the age of 15, when he went back to high school, they didn't want to let him play anymore. They considered him a professional.
Yes, it took quite a while before he had some friends somewhere that got him back, and he pitched for Hamilton for the last 2 years in high school, and he was a dominant pitcher for them. He had all kinds of records for Hamilton. And then after he graduated, it's when he went in the minor leagues.
16-year career as a pitcher, I believe I saw, and said he won 136 games. But I think most people just love him for his personality. He was unbelievable. I remember seeing when they did a bobblehead night one night when I was a kid, and they were showing him the bobblehead. It was a bobblehead of him as a rookie. They were doing one from his very first night. They said, "What do you think, Joe? Looks just like you." And he took his glasses off and said, "You want to borrow these?" Rest in peace, Joe Nuxhall. I just thought, we got to go out and see Crosley Field, where scoreboard and everything from the original Crosley Field. Why not come out and see Joe today? Rest in peace. Yeah, we were trying to remember who he pitched for other than the Reds. It was Kansas City and it was the LA Angels. But you told me he was a really good hitter for his day.
Oh, he was used as a pinch hitter quite often.
Very rare for a National League pitcher to be used as a pinch hitter of all things, but
he had a lot of home runs.
Did he?
He did.
He was a big guy, actually.
Yeah, he was. Everybody liked him.
I remember when he passed away, actually his last night signing off, people were crying, but when he passed away, that was a really solemn night for baseball. Joe was inducted into the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame in 1968, and sadly he passed away of cancer. So my grandpa said, "Why don't you look on your phone and see what happened to his wife, what condition she's in?" And I typed in her name, and what I found was that they were mentioning her in 2019 being 91 years old and attending a miracle miniature golf course opening that had a dedication to Marty and Joe at the miniature golf course. So for 91, she looked pretty good in the picture. It looked like she was getting around okay. Great to see. And as we were driving through the cemetery, I saw this mound and I couldn't understand what it was, so I wanted to go see who was buried here, and then I realized it's for Jesus. Because it starts out saying, "Here's a man who was born of Jewish parents in an obscure village, child of a peasant woman. He grew up in another obscure village. He worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30, and then 3 years he was an itinerant preacher. He never wrote a book. He never had an office. He never owned a home. He never had a family. He never went to college." And all about one solitary life. If you'd like to read all of this, I'll scroll it so that you can pause it for those who'd like to read it. All right, my friends, we're gonna call it a day. In fact, I feel rain coming on, so we're gonna call it a night. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you Deborah Jane for becoming my newest Patreon. And we'll see you all next time. Have a great night and goodbye.